What if some of your strongest memories never actually happened the way you remember them? Your brain feels incredibly reliable, but psychologists have discovered that memory is far less accurate than most people believe. It can create false memories, make familiar places feel completely new, and even convince you that you've lived through a moment before. The most surprising part? These strange memory glitches happen to almost everyone. So let's count down the most fascinating memory phenomena and uncover what they're revealing about how your brain really works. Number 10. The tip of the tongue phenomenon. You've experienced it before. A familiar name, word, or fact feels incredibly close, yet no matter how hard you try, you simply can't remember it. Psychologists call this the tip of the tongue phenomenon. Researchers have found that the memory hasn't disappeared. Instead, the brain temporarily struggles to retrieve it. Studies published in cognitive psychology journals suggest that partial information often remains accessible, which is why you may remember the first letter, the number of syllables, or where you learned the information without recalling the exact word itself. The harder you force yourself to remember, the more frustrating the experience becomes because stress interferes with retrieval. Ironically, many people remember the missing word only after they stop thinking about it. This memory glitch demonstrates that forgetting isn't always caused by lost information. Sometimes the brain simply cannot access a memory that is still stored, making retrieval, not storage, the real challenge. Understanding this process reminds us that temporary forgetting is a normal part of healthy brain function. Number 9. False memories. One of the strangest discoveries in psychology is that the brain can confidently remember events that never actually happened. Researchers studying memory have repeatedly demonstrated that memories are reconstructed rather than replayed like videos. Each time you recall an event, the brain rebuilds it using stored information, emotions, expectations, and later experiences. During this reconstruction, small inaccuracies can gradually become permanent parts of the memory. People may remember conversations differently, believe they witnessed events they only heard about, or recall details that were never present. Experiments published in memory research journals have shown that suggestion alone can sometimes create convincing false memories. These memories often feel just as real as genuine ones, because the brain experiences them with complete confidence. This explains why honest people can disagree about the exact same event, while sincerely believing their version is completely accurate. Even repeated discussions with others can unintentionally strengthen these inaccurate memories over many years. Number 8. Déjà vu. Few mental experiences are more mysterious than déjà vu. Suddenly, a completely new situation feels strangely familiar, as though you've already lived through the exact same moment before. Researchers believe this sensation may occur when the brain briefly misidentifies a new experience as a stored memory. Instead of recognizing an event as new, memory processing systems temporarily label it as familiar. Although the experience usually lasts only a few seconds, it can feel remarkably convincing. Brain imaging studies suggest that small timing differences between perception and memory processing may contribute to this unusual sensation. Déjà vu is surprisingly common and is generally considered harmless in healthy individuals. Rather than predicting the future or proving past lives, it appears to be a fascinating example of how the brain's memory systems occasionally become briefly out of sync. Scientists continue studying why these rare moments occur despite otherwise healthy cognitive functioning. Number 7. Jamais vu. While déjà vu makes something new feel familiar, jamais vu creates the opposite experience. Something you've seen countless times suddenly feels completely unfamiliar. Researchers describe this memory glitch as a temporary disruption in familiarity processing. For example, repeatedly writing a common word may eventually make it look incorrect or meaningless. You may briefly stare at your own signature, or even a familiar face, and experience an odd feeling that something seems unfamiliar. Scientists believe repeated exposure can temporarily disrupt the brain's normal recognition systems, causing familiar information to lose its usual sense of meaning. Although the experience can feel unsettling, it usually lasts only a short time before normal recognition returns. Jamais vu reminds us that familiarity is an active brain process rather than a permanent property of memory itself. Most episodes disappear naturally once the brain restores its normal recognition and processing patterns. Number 6. Source monitoring errors. Have you ever remembered a fact but forgotten where you learned it? That's known as a source monitoring error. Researchers have found that the brain often stores information separately from its original source. You may clearly remember hearing a story, but mistakenly believe one friend told it when it actually came from another. Sometimes people remember reading information online, but later believe they witnessed it personally. Because the content of the memory remains accurate, the mistake often goes unnoticed. These source errors become more common when information is repeated from multiple places over time. The brain successfully remembers the knowledge itself while confusing its origin. Although usually harmless, source monitoring errors demonstrate that remembering information and remembering where it came from are two different cognitive processes that don't always function perfectly together. This explains why confident memories can still contain surprisingly inaccurate contextual details. Number 5. The Mandela effect. Imagine remembering something with complete confidence, only to discover that thousands of other people remember it the same way, even though it never actually happened. This unusual phenomenon is known as the Mandela effect. Researchers studying collective memory suggest that it occurs because the brain reconstructs memories using patterns, expectations, and associations, rather than storing perfect recordings of every experience. Popular movie quotes, famous logos, brand names, historical details, and even well-known events are common examples where large groups of people share the same incorrect memory. Because these false memories are reinforced through conversations, social media, and repeated exposure, they begin feeling increasingly accurate over time. The brain values consistency, so once an incorrect memory becomes established, it often resists correction. Rather than proving alternate realities or parallel universes, the Mandela effect demonstrates how surprisingly flexible and reconstructive human memory truly is. It also reveals how easily confident recollection can spread across entire groups of people. Number 4. Childhood amnesia. Most people remember very little from the first few years of life, even though those years shaped who they became. Researchers call this childhood amnesia. Studies suggest that the hippocampus, a brain structure essential for forming long-term memories, continues developing throughout early childhood. At the same time, language skills, emotional understanding, and personal identity are still evolving. Because these systems are not yet fully mature, many early experiences are never stored in a way that allows them to be consciously recalled later in life. This doesn't mean those experiences were unimportant. Instead, they continue influencing emotional development, learning, attachment, and behavior without becoming clear autobiographical memories. Childhood amnesia highlights the difference between experiences that shape the brain and experiences the brain can consciously remember years later. Those early experiences still influence personality in subtle ways throughout adulthood and everyday behavior. Number 3. Flashbulb memories. Some moments feel permanently frozen in time. People often remember exactly where they were, what they were doing, and how they felt during emotionally significant events. Psychologists refer to these vivid recollections as flashbulb memories. Researchers have found that intense emotional experiences activate brain systems involved in both attention and memory, making these moments feel exceptionally clear. However, long-term studies reveal an important surprise. Although people remain highly confident in these memories, the details often change gradually over the years. Confidence stays remarkably high, even as accuracy slowly declines. The brain preserves the emotional importance of the event, while unintentionally altering specific details through repeated recollection. This demonstrates that emotional intensity strengthens the feeling of remembering without guaranteeing that every remembered detail remains perfectly accurate over time. Emotion preserves importance better than precision, allowing confidence to outlast actual factual accuracy. Number 2. Memory blocking. Sometimes a memory seems completely inaccessible, only to return unexpectedly hours, days, or even weeks later. Researchers describe this temporary retrieval failure as memory blocking. Unlike permanent forgetting, the information remains stored in the brain but cannot be accessed at that particular moment. Stress, distraction, fatigue, or interference from similar memories can temporarily interrupt retrieval pathways. For example, you may forget someone's name during an important introduction, then suddenly remember it while driving home. The brain continues processing information even when conscious retrieval fails. Once mental pressure decreases, or a helpful cue appears, the blocked memory often becomes available again. This common experience reminds us that memory retrieval depends not only on what the brain has stored, but also on whether the right retrieval pathways are active at the right time. Giving the brain time often succeeds better than forcing immediate recall through frustration alone. Number 1. Misattribution. One of the most common memory glitches is misattribution, where the brain correctly remembers information but incorrectly links it to the wrong person, place, or event. Researchers studying cognitive psychology have found that memories are built from multiple pieces of information stored across different brain networks. During recall, these pieces must be accurately reassembled. Occasionally, the brain mixes them together. You may remember hearing a joke but attribute it to the wrong friend. You might believe you read a fact in a book when it actually came from a documentary. These small errors happen because memory prioritizes meaning over perfect historical accuracy. Instead of functioning like a digital recording, the brain reconstructs experiences each time they are recalled. Understanding misattribution reveals one of memory's most fascinating truths. Remembering something confidently is not always the same as remembering it accurately. Recognizing this limitation encourages greater humility whenever recalling important conversations or personal experiences. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to see more.